Hello everyone, Darcenovia here once again, and this time I'm reviewing 12 issues. More than my normal, amount that I usually review, but considering that the Vector event, spans like 12 issues through 4 series, I don't want to cover this in 4 separate videos. So I figured I'm going to cover it, all in one, review. And if you see me shuffling over, volumes to showcase what the way I think of the artwork, that's the reason why. Because, well, I don't own, the omnibus or whatever. This first volume of Vector, I only own the second because I already have the other stories, in the other 2 volumes. So that's why. Anyway, I'm going to start chronologically. The first 4 parts begins in the Old Republic. Now, one thing you're going to notice me bitching about right away, and I'm saying this now because I'm not going to repeat myself, is the artwork is atrocious. I mean, I think the artwork is awful. In the first 4 issues of this event, the Old Republic portion, I think the artwork is awful. I truly think it's awful. The character clearly, Celeste Moore, that doesn't look anything like she does, in the, covers of the, comic issues. It's just it's just this ugly artwork. It's just so freaking hideous looking. I mean, I know this series changes artists, quite often, but my God, it's awful. This is below average art, and honestly, it's just terrible. As for the story itself, at least in, the Old Republic portion, to me, it's filler. You could completely skip this story. If you're not interested in reading the other comic series, it's completely skippable. Though, if you have the omnibus, you might as well read it if you have the Epic Collection. But you could completely skip these issues because it doesn't add anything of value. It doesn't really advance the story in any meaningful way. And I think it's worthless, honestly. I would not even bother reading, the first 4 issues of this event, especially if you have no interest in reading the other comics. Now, the second, portion, which takes place in Dark Times, one thing I'm going to let you know, the artwork is far superior to the first issue, even though I don't know if you could skip it yet, considering the fact I haven't read, the comics after it, but I can tell you this much. The artwork alone is superior to the first one. So, for that alone, I think it's an improvement. As for the story, it's whatever. Honestly, I do believe this story can be skipped as well, though I do think the art is pretty good, honestly, in my opinion, but that's one of the only good things I can say about it. I'm just being real here. I have to praise it somehow. The art is pretty good in this, particular comic, at least in this portion. I think the lightsaber duel between Vader and Celeste Mar is pretty cool, and the characters that are featured in the Dark Times comics, I feel like they didn't even need to be in this arc at all. I think you could have removed them and not much would have changed, because they're not really the main characters in here. It just focuses mostly on Celeste Mar and Darth Vader. Overall, better than the first 4 issues of this arc, though I do believe you could probably skip them as well. Not bad, not, great either. Now, on a pattern you're going to notice is if you were collecting the trades back in the day, you will know for some series, Legacy, there's a Volume 7, but there isn't a Volume 6. And the same goes for Old Republic, and the same goes for Dark Times. They go to like a different number. Why is that? Well, Vector happened. So, if you wanted the full story, and you're collecting things in trades, you have to have these. Now, even if you don't care about this event, if you're reading, Legacy, it is an absolute must that you read Vector. Because if you don't read Vector, you're going to be completely lost to what's happening. But before that, I'm going to go talk about the final 2 issues of the Republic Rebellion comics, I mean. Rebellion, last time, I did say, I'm pretty much done talking about the series. To be honest, this doesn't really feel like a Rebellion comic. It feels like, again, part of a meaningless event. In fact, I don't know why this part of the arc even exists in the first place. You could completely skip this portion. I mean, the art is great, I will admit. In my opinion, I think the art is fantastic, as usual. But what really happens in this comic? The pointless death of a character that was introduced in Empire. And unfortunately, the best thing about it is the art. It's just nothing of, really... You could really skip this comic completely. You really can. I just don't think it's necessary to read this. It does have some cool looking imagery. Like, I will admit. I'm just showing you here. I know I forgot to mention the talk about the Sith talisman, but to be honest, the villain is so forgettable. And honestly, nobody is gonna give a shit if they read this arc. They don't care about this particular villain. I mean, Rebellion, the last 2 issues, you have some cool looking imagery here and there, but again, it's completely skippable. You see where I'm getting at here on why this event is kind of a problem? Because before I talk about the final portions of the event, I'm going to talk about why I think this event is pointless before I talk about Legacy's portion. When nearly all of it is skippable, that's a problem. It feels like this event was a ploy to sell more comics. And you could skip the one in Knights of the Old Republic because all it is a poorly drawn, comic arc that doesn't really advance the plot in any significant way. Then you have Dark Times and Rebellion. You have some cool looking art, but that's all it is. It's kind of forgettable. Legacy is the best portion of this, purely because there is actual plot progression. With various characters, Darth Krayt, Cade Skywalker. But this is the problem, though. I do feel like this arc would have been better if it wasn't tied to Vector, and that is the problem. Vector, basically stopped every freaking storyline that was going on at the time, and stopped just to do an event, because that's something Marvel and DC does, and it really pisses me off. I mean, there are some good aspects of the Legacy portion of Vector, but the problem is, Celisa Moore, whatever the hell her name is, she didn't need to be in here. She only exists just to get people to, buy more comics. That's all her character is. And nobody's going to care. And if you don't read this comic, you're not going to know what's going on, especially in Legacy. So, in a way, yeah, that's what kind of annoys me. I think it's not a bad, comic in Legacy, but the problem is it could have been a better comic if this comic wasn't shoehorned into Legacy. And of course, as usual, the artwork is beautiful. Then again, usually the main arcs of Legacy are great. I just feel like this entire storyline was just shoehorned in order to sell more comics. That really annoys the shit out of me. You have some cool looking imagery too, just like the other ones. And you have a huge development with Darth Warlock and Darth Krayt. And yeah, there's some really good moments in here. But the huge issue is Celisa Moore is shoehorned into this. She didn't need to be in this comic. She really didn't. And for me, it's like one of the worst possible things that could happen. Knights of the Old Republic, the filler. That's what it feels like. Zane Carrick is is looking to head to the location that was told to him at the end of the previous arc. But wait, we can't do that because we have to have an event to force comic readers to buy all of our fucking comics. So not only does Knights of the Old Republic get affected by this, because people have to wait an extra 4 months just to wait for the plot to progress, because there's no plot progression in here. Then Dark Times, luckily it's only 2 months, but still, the art looks, at least you have a cool looking fight scene, and at least the art looks good, unlike the first 4. Rebellion, wow, what a way to end a series prematurely. You end it with a cash grab of an event. And Legacy, wow, what a way to basically shoehorn a character, even though it's not a filler story because it advances the plot of Legacy, but shoehorn a character that didn't need to be there. That's what really irks me about this event. I hated it. I hated this event. I truly fucking hated it. Because it did not need to exist. Honestly. I just fucking hated it. I really fucking despise this comic series. And you had a great story going on in Legacy. And I'm talking about Legacy the most because Legacy is probably and Knights of the Old Republic are my favorite comics, that I'm reading all of these. It for completely shoehorns stories that did not need to exist. And I just don't like it. And this is what angers me about this event. It's a cash grab. If you ask me, don't read any of them but Legacy. But the only reason I recommend Legacy is because you have to do it because there's plot progression in Legacy, unlike the other comics. Ugh. God. What were they thinking? That's enough, honestly. Next time, I'll be talking about the good story used in these comics. Anyway, have a good day, everyone. Stay safe, and may the Force be with you always.